So we'll do a little half and half here. Let's see what we got. Okay. For stuff like this, not rocket science, just read the bottle. There's also almost always a company-sponsored YouTube tutorial. So if you ever do like show up on a job, say somebody's like, hey, here you go, do the metal thing, and you're like, oh, I don't really, like, I haven't used this before. Just look up a YouTube video. It's not illegal. You're totally allowed to do it. I used to think I was going to get in trouble at work. I'd be like, oh, I don't really know how to, and they're like, just look up a YouTube video about it. And I'm like, I can just, like, yeah, like, we don't care as long as it gets done. So don't be afraid to, like, if you don't know something, or even if you just feel a little unsure, definitely, read your labels and check YouTube too, because it's better to like go in with more information than you need than to be kind of like freeballing it and then realize you missed like a really crucial step. Especially for things like this that are a two-part activator, they're generally very specific in the ways that they need to be applied in order for it to successfully go off. So this one is telling me that I have to apply 2 coats of the primer and allow it to cure. And we don't have that, so that's okay. We're just going to keep going. And then we're going to apply 2 coats of the oxidizing paintbrush and let it dry. And then while it is still wet, put on the solution. Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so I'll tell you what. We're going to put one really thin coat on and hope that it dries. And then we'll put another coat on and see what happens. So this does want us to put a primer underneath. We're going to find out if that's really necessary. That's the other thing too. Sometimes these companies will tell you to do stuff and it's really just because they want you to buy like more of their product. So I can see why they want you to use the primer, because it's really sheer. You guys seen how sheer this is? Mm-hmm. Super sheer. So essentially, like if we were really doing, tell you what, let's give ourselves a nice startup color. We'll do black to have something for it to sit on. And luckily we've got our handy dandy heat gun. Okay, so we'll let that dry and then we'll just pile everything else up on top. How's our crackle doing? Is it wet? Yeah, it's still pretty wet. Did you guys ever do the crackle nail polish? That was really popular when I was in high school, and I heard it made a comeback recently.
It's coming back.
Yeah, dude, it all is. Like, it's so wild. I feel it's funny to me because when I was in high school, my mom was getting really outraged by all the stuff from her high school years that was coming back, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, can you calm down? But no, it's happening to us now. It's the choker chains and the scrunchies and the flannel and like all that early 2000s stuff is back. But I love it because that stuff was super cool. I don't know why we ever got rid of it, honestly. I had a girl the other day. I was like in the checkout at a grocery store. She goes, hi, like, I don't know if this is going to come off weird as a compliment, but this is like very 2015 right now. And I was like, thanks. Hi, are you guys part of the class? Are you just sitting in? Oh, okay. Well, hi, I'm Tara. I'm a freelance scenic artist, and I'm showing them some aging stuff. We're doing like a rusty patina thing right now. So we're just going to layer this on and hope that the special primer is not necessary. There we go. Okay, So it's saying you want one coat that's dry. Oh, it's not quite dry. One coat that's dry, and then we're going to put another coat on wet, and we're going to put it on wet on wet. And I will say, from using the rust one and just horror stories from friends of mine that have used it, a little goes a really long way. So it's one of those things you want to start off with like just a little bit and then work your way up, because you can very quickly like take over your whole project. And sometimes that's what you're going for. But a lot of times with rust, you don't, you know, the less is almost more, because then it really showcases like where that aging is happening. All right. And of course, you would generally want to use like a clean brush for each step, but for the sake of time and cleanup, okay. And now we see. Nope. Not quite strong enough. Ooh, there we go. Okay. That nice crackle in the bottom. Sometimes the best inspiration is just your old junky buckets. Okay. And again, we don't know what's in this, so wear gloves. Don't be me. Especially things with like a 2-part chemical process. Generally not great for your skin. Safety first. All right, let's see what happens. And put it on. It's going on kind of thick. We'll see. Might take a little bit of time. So the one thing, Fred, if this doesn't go off, it does say you're supposed to put 2 coats of this like special primer that they sell underneath it. I don't know how necessary that is.
No, I decided to opt not to buy it just because
Yeah.
of the cost. And also, the main thing it said on it was that the primer kept it from penetrating through.
Oh, okay. So just to
if you're
protect
putting
the
on
original,
metal, so
it doesn't eat in.
In other words, they don't want it so it really rusts the thing you're wanting to fake rust. So my thought is we don't care about that.
Yeah.
No, I read
No, that
it
makes
while I
sense.
was there.
Okay.
And again, just like Tara says, always, like I even say call the company.
Oh yeah.
They want you to use their product.
You can do that if you're ever having difficulty with something. Like say this doesn't go off, and I was on a job, and I'd be like, what am I doing wrong here? My first move would be watch a YouTube video about it. And then if it still doesn't go off, you know, then I would maybe call the manufacturer. And I've had to do this with multiple different things. Like anytime you have a question, there is almost always someone on the other end of that line that knows more about this than you ever will. And they're so happy to like give you that information because they're just sitting at a desk all day. And so they love to have a conversation with you about their stuff. Same thing with like bad batches. Like if you get a bad batch, this happens to us a lot at Cobalt, where like if you get a bad batch of off-Broadway Roscoe, you just look at the batch number, you call up Jenny and say, hey, listen, like I got a bad batch here. You give her the number, and that way she can go and make sure that they pull that batch, and then they will for free send you a new one. I don't know.
Did you say how long it takes to activate that?
No, let me see.
Is there like actual metallic?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It's probably catalyzing the actual metal fragments in here. So it does say, where is it?
Yeah, and it's not so.
Yeah, contains copper. Avoid eye and skin contact. Wash thoroughly after handling. Yeah, so it says metal effects oxidizing bronze paint contains real copper and zinc particles that will oxidize when metal effects patina aging solutions, either blue or green, are used over the oxidizing bronze paint, creating an authentic blue or green patinaed metal finish. And this is something to keep in mind too with your metallic paints. So almost all of your metallic paints are metallic because they have super fine ground metals in them, which means that if you introduce water into that paint, it will over time start to corrode and rust. And so it's really important when you're mixing your metal paints to always mix into a separate container and try to keep your original pot as like untainted with anything as possible, because any little bit of moisture that gets in there is going to start to literally rust your paint from the inside out, and it'll go bad really quickly. And unfortunately, like a gallon, of like Modern Masters gold is going to be about triple the amount of your average paint. So you want to take care of it. It's like budget wise. Maybe throw a little heat on it.
Yeah.
Let's see. All right, guys, a little underwhelming.
It might take a couple hours to do it.
Yeah.
And that is true. When I use metallics and models, okay, I pull it out and I put it like in a wet palette, and you can see within like an hour it will become green because it's oxidizing.
And it is a process. I mean, it's like, it took the Statue of Liberty, how many years to go from bronze to green? Like, it does take time. So we'll let that sit and we'll mess around with our coffee grounds. So the version of this that I saw actually had you spreading the coffee grounds and then spray painting over them to adhere them. But I think for our purposes, we'll just mix them straight into the paint. It's going to have like pretty much the same effect, I would think.
Yeah, and so I got that at first.
That's what I mean. Most of these companies now, they've wised up to the fact that people are looking for demos and things like that. And so most of them have like a product channel with tutorials on all of their products. And then ideally, do we have any sort of like an orange color?
Well, we have red and yellow.
Okay.
So we can mix them.
That works.
I think there's some red and yellow in the back. That's like already.
I'll say I'm scoping out. I see an orange pot there, but that might be a lying container. So yeah, I'm like, it's not. Who knows what's actually in there? So I find with rust, as much you can use your natural sponge roller, and there are instances where that will be helpful, but for me, I generally just use like a smashy chip brush. The more messed up, the better. Like these are pretty new, so it's a little rough, but and again, it really just depends on your sample. Oh, that's great. No, I like that. Just start topping down some color. Yeah. Boop. And again, this is like already like a pretty big area to do. Generally, I mean, you will sometimes have to do like a huge rust wall, like those references that you sent me. But most of the time, it's usually just like a little corner of this, a little like solder seam of that. And for that, like I said, it really is just like a pop of color will go a long way. You don't have to do any sort of crazy, techniques. Let's see how our coffee grounds go. And these are just like regular old coffee grounds. Earlier we were talking about too, I guess the DIY girlies have come up with a technique of on top of something that's metal, faux or not, little bit of gray paint and then some cinnamon powder on top. And that actually gets you like a really nice, so I've never seen that before, but in my research I was looking for stuff for you guys and I thought that was so cool. And super safe too, right? Yeah, like cheap, safe. Again, with the coffee ground, like I wanted to bring you guys stuff because yeah, it's like I could have brought you fumed silica, but like really, if you're asked to do a little rust thing, are you going to be like, oh, better go get me some fumed silica? Of course not. You're going to use coffee grounds. You're going to use cinnamon. Like it's really totally fine to use these really budget options, especially when, you know, people are looking at this stuff for either 0.2 seconds on screen or 30 feet away on a moving horse for theater. But look at that. That's giving us a really nice rusty texture. That corroded look, absolutely lovely. Color, not great, but that's okay. Right now I'm just trying to get the that texture down. It smells nice too.
I was gonna say, it smells so good.
Yeah. That's what I mean. We have a little baking class, honestly. So the other thing too is what we call the color wars, right? So like when you're mixing certain colors together, you're noticing that like this color eats the orange aggressively, right? So this color loses the color war, which means we have to be really specific about where we're putting it if we want it to stay vibrant. And that's just, I don't know, that's just like a mental game I like to play when I'm working with different colors. I like to say, okay, well, this one's going to win this one's going to lose the color war. And you can kind of get an idea in your head of how aggressively or how not aggressively it's going to lose. Same thing with like a scumble. Like if you're scumbling two colors together, one is always going to win the color war. And so having like a cognizance of that when you're working it, to know that one is always going to win. So maybe you're going to give that one a little extra care, maybe some extra sections. But yeah, this is actually pretty cool. Don't hate that. Don't hate that at all. We have enough time. If you guys want to grab a couple of boards, I'll just clear this away and leave some chip brushes out if you guys want to like play around with this a little bit. Because it's really, I'm not doing, it's not rocket science. I'm not doing anything crazy here. I'm just tapping colors in and out. What's up? Yeah, is it starting to go off? Very good. Let's put a little more heat on it and see. And it did say you can use a sprayer, a roller, or a sponge or a brush to apply that. So it's really not picky about how you get it on. So it might be fun to test out, when you guys do this next week, test out different materials to see how it translates, like what kind of marks you're going to get. So this I did with the natural foam roller or sponge. But I'm sure you'll get like a slightly different look if you
I know when I worked for Sherwin-Williams, we sold our concrete stains actually had a reactive agent.
Oh, cool.
It took like a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did our front area with each of the different ones.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was the one that did it. And so each section, then I painted like what it was and what it was mixed with. And I remember the next day, it looked way deeper and richer than the very first day.
Okay.
And I was shocked because I was like, the package did not say that. It said like 2 hours or whatever. But they're going to say that because the guy doesn't want to wait. Oh, look, I can see it changing color.
Yeah, it's starting to go. It might also have been because I did put it on kind of thick, so it's just taking a while to dry as well. Because it is oxidizing, right? That is the process that's happening. So as it dries, it's going to start that reaction. Maybe we could try a little spot. See? We'll do the left side. And she's got the totally right idea, you guys. Like, again, with when it comes to sampling, just be like, oh, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do that?
All the time. One of the tricks that I use for doing like a tile floor is I paint it, and while it's still wet, is I'll just throw alcohol on it.
I was going to mention that, yeah.
Separate. And literally, it looks way better than you trying to pretend to do it because the alcohol just does its thing.
And you can even mix it into your glaze. Like just a splash of alcohol in your glaze will cause it to start doing some like really unpredictably weird stuff, which if you're like cool to kind of like let the chaos take over, then that can be really fun because, alcohol is your best friend. It really does like, it adds like that X factor. Right. Into a lot of these like washes and things like that. Yeah, I think it's gonna go. We just gotta give it some time. Man, I'm really loving the coffee ground. It's the first time doing this, you guys, and I'm like, I can't believe I haven't done this before. It's so cool. I generally use sawdust because it's like, who cares, and we'll just dip into that. But I had this. So I gave up coffee 6 months ago, so I've had this jar of decaf just like sitting around.
Oh, those those are the best jars you get for free when you eat the whatever it is,
The
the
Talenti
yogurt or whatever.
gelato.
Gelato.
Yeah, no, I love it. I used to. It's expensive now, so I'm a Haagen-Dazs girl. But yeah, I used to exclusively eat Talenti so that I could keep these containers for paint. Very handy.